Well, you've made it to the last week, week 8. This week our theme is disciplining desire. You've only got 2 selections to read. Kind of nice how you've had less and less to read after that first week where you had 55 pages. But just because you've only got 2 selections, it doesn't mean that it's going to be that much simpler or easy. In fact, this is kind of a challenging discussion we're going to have here. That's what I want to talk about, disciplining desire. Ambition is a great thing. It can propel us to do wonderful things. But there is also a dark side to ambition, too. So I'd like you to consider this as you consider the biographies this week and how this might relate to you in your professional work life. Ambition can be defined as striving for some kind of achievement or distinction and involves, first, the desire for achievement, and second, the willingness to work towards it and even face adversity or failure. To be ambitious is to achieve first and foremost, not for the sake of the achievement itself, which is to be high-reaching, but for the sake of distinguishing oneself from others. So, if we were the last person on earth, there would be no need for ambition, right? Ambition is often confused with aspiration. Now, unlike mere aspiration, which has a particular goal for an object, ambition is a trait or disposition, and as such is persistent and pervasive. A person cannot alter their ambition any more than they can alter any other character trait that they have. Having achieved one goal, the truly ambitious person soon formulates another at which to keep striving. Ambition is often spoken of as in the same breath as in hopes and ambitions, but hope is the desire for something to happen combined with an anticipation of it happening. In contrast, though, ambition is the desire for achievement or distinction combined with the willingness to work for it. The opposite of hope is fear, or hopelessness, or despair. The opposite of ambition is simply a lack of ambition, which is not really a negative state. Perhaps, in fact, it might be a preferable state. In many Eastern traditions, ambition is seen as an evil by tying us to worldly pursuits and keeps us from the spiritual life and its fruits of virtue, wisdom, and tranquility. In contrast, in the West, ambition is lauded as a precondition or a precursor for success, even though the Western canon itself tends to fall against it. This goes back to the ancients. Plato said that being devoid of ambition, good men shun politics, leaving us to be ruled by bad men and their ambitions. Aristotle seemed to have a more nuanced take on ambition. He defines virtue as a disposition to aim at the intermediate between excess and deficiency. So Aristotle basically was preaching for moderation in ambition. To this day, people still speak of ambition after Aristotle as healthy ambition, unhealthy ambition, or lack of ambition. And perhaps that is a nuance that we ought to consider. In fact, highly ambitious people are sensitive to resistance and failure and experience almost constant dissatisfaction or frustration. This is according to most psychological studies. Indeed, it is the fear of failure that checks the ambition of all but the most courageous or rash of people. Just as mania can end in depression, so can ambition end in anguish and despair. To live with ambition is to live with fear and anxiety, unless, that is, the weight of our ambitions can be relieved by gratitude, which is the feeling of appreciation for all that we already have. Although gratitude is especially lacking in future-focused people, ambition is much less toxic if even without climbing life can still seem worth living. People are not truly ambitious unless they're willing to make sacrifices in the name of their ambition, even though the end of their ambition may not be worth their sacrifices, and not only because it may have been reached or even approached. It can be even argued that with pure, naked ambition, the end is never worth the sacrifice. Happily, ambition is rarely pure, but it's usually intermingled with unselfish aims and motives, even if these may be more incidental than deliberate and determining. And it may be that our greatest achievements are all, or almost all, accidents of ambition. So in that much, ambition is like the dangled carrot that goes the donkey, that pulls the cart. Studies have found that on average, ambitious people attain higher levels of education and income, build more prestigious careers, and despite the noxious effects of their ambition, report higher levels of overall life satisfaction. Owing to bad luck and poor judgment, most ambitious people eventually fall short of their ambitions, but that still lands them far ahead of their more unassuming peers. So why are some people more ambitious to others? Well, to cut a long story short, ambition is a complex construct born out of a host of factors, including but not limited to parental role models and expectations, birth orders, sibling rivalries, feelings of inferiority or superiority, fear of failure and rejection, intelligence, past achievements, competitiveness, envy, anger, revenge, and the instinctual drives for life and sex. From a purely psychological perspective, ambition can be thought of as an ego defense, which, like all ego defenses, serves to protect and uphold a certain notion of the self. One ego defense that merits a particular exploration in the context of ambition is sublimation, which is among the most mature and successful of all ego defenses. Say if I'm angry at my boss, I may go home and act out on my anger by smashing some plates. Or I might instead run it off on a treadmill. The first instance, smashing some plates, is an example of displacement, the redirection of uncomfortable feelings towards someone or something less important, which is an immature ego defense. The second instance, running on a treadmill, is an example of sublimation, the channeling of unproductive or destructive forces into socially condoned and often constructive activities, which of course is a much more mature ego defense. So in life, few things are good or bad. Rather, they're good and bad depend on what we can or cannot make out of them. People with a high degree of ambition are those with the insight and the strength to control the blind forces of ambition. That is, to shape their ambitions so that it matches their interests and ideals, and to harness it so that it fires them without also burning them or those around them. The highest understanding, born out of humility, is perhaps that it is not necessary to be ambitious to be high-reaching, or indeed to feel alive. People shrink or expand into the degree and to the nature of their ambition. Ambition needs to be cultivated and refined, and yet it has no teachers. So consider ambition, desire, and how that drives leadership, and how that drives us sometimes to greatness and sometimes to perversity. So that's it. I will look forward to reading your reflections on desire and ambition this week in both the discussion boards and in your written assignment. I've enjoyed reading your work over the past several weeks, and I hope that during these weeks that you've got something out of this course that will help you in the future. I sincerely wish you all the best.